Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday to you. Hope you had a good weekend. Hope you've had a good Monday morning so far, and I hope that it's going to be a good week in the Word for us. I think it will be. My name is Tim Harris. It's 10 o'clock. Each day, Monday through Friday, we take about 10 minutes, give or take a minute, and we go verse by verse through the Word of God. Last Friday, we started First Chronicles, and today we are in First Chronicles chapter 10. Whoa, how did we get to chapter 10 in one day? Well, because we read 9 chapters on day 1. And for today, we've read 14 verses. So I think maybe I've given you a rest. Chapter 10 is good, but not very long. Let's jump right into it. Chapter 10 starts the narrative portion of the book of Chronicles, and it's interesting. It's basically the death of King Saul. Why start right there? Why just start with the death of Saul? In First Samuel, we had chapters 9 to 30, 31 that are devoted to Saul's reign. But in Chronicles, we get 14 verses. 14 verses, and that's just the death of Saul. To put that in perspective, First Chronicles is going to give us something like 19 chapters devoted to David. So you can see where his priorities are. But remember, Saul is the king the people thought they wanted. Saul is the king they got when they just said, God, we want a king to fight our battles for us. Okay, hold that thought. We want a king that'll fight our battles for us, even though God had said he would fight their battles. We want a king like all the other nations have a king. All the other nations, they got kings and presidents. At first of every year, they get to have a State of the Union address. We want a State of the Union address. Guys, they got somebody on their dollar bill. We don't have anybody on our dollar bill. They just wanted to be like other nations. And God's like, isn't the whole point of me selecting you out of the other nations is that you would be separate and belong to me? But like, we also want a king. So they get a king. They get Saul. Saul is the tribe of Benjamin, even though the king that God will choose is from the tribe of Judah. Saul looks like the right guy. He's tall, he's awesome, he's handsome. He's going to look good on their dollar bill, y'all. He is going to be amazing. He looks good on Good Morning America. He's on the red carpet. But he is not the man after God's own heart. He is not a faithful man. And so the chronicler just gives us the death of Saul, primarily as a means of getting him off the stage, removing him so that we can elevate David and get straight to the stories of David. So the death of King Saul, comes at the end of a long war against the Philistines, a long battle. They're losing. Israel is losing. And many had already been slaughtered. And so it comes down to Saul in the chariot with his armor bearer. The Philistines are closing in. They've already killed 3 of his sons. Jonathan is dead, Abinadab is dead, and Malchishua is also dead. Everything's growing fierce. The Philistine archers caught up with him and wounded him. That's just kind of interesting. I think in chapter 12 in Chronicles, we'll get there this week. In chapter 12, we're told specifically that the tribe of Benjamin, that the relatives of Saul, that the warriors around Saul, they are expert archers, So it's just kind of ironic that Saul is ultimately wounded by an archer. Like, aren't you supposed to be some kind of archer? But apparently he's better at catching arrows than shooting them. So Saul groans to his armor bearer, just kill me, take your sword and kill me, because he doesn't want to happen what's going to happen. If they capture him alive, he knows that they will gloat, they will humiliate him, and he wants to avoid that. Now he's going to die. They're still going to humiliate his body. They're going to desecrate his body, but at least please don't let them capture me alive. He knows what's happened, and he knows what's going to happen, and he knows that there's no way out of this. Just kill me now, kill me. But the armor bearer is afraid. You don't do that. David, in the stories of David fleeing from Saul, David won't turn and kill Saul, even though it looks like you need to kill Saul. Saul is still the anointed of God. He's God's anointed king, and God put him in there, and God's going to have to take him out. Nobody's going to kill Saul And so Saul ultimately falls on his own sword and kills himself. The armor bearer kills himself, so there they lay dead together. As the story goes, the next day the Philistines all come out to strip the dead, and that's where they find the bodies of Saul and his sons on Mount Gilboa. So they do what we were afraid they would do. They strip off Saul's armor, they cut off his head. They make his head the greatest, trophy of war ever, and they take it before their idols and to the people. That's an interesting phrase there in verse 9. They proclaim the good news of Saul's death before their idols. Now, what's that about? Well, remember that the primary job of an ancient god was to fight their battles, was to give them victory in battle. And so that's why they cut off Saul's head and place it in the temple of Dagon. Remember Dagon? Dagon is the temple where they put the Ark of the Covenant, remember? And Dagon kept falling on his face. It was a great story. That's not what happens this time. They bring in Saul's head into the temple of Dagon. It is the way of giving to Dagon the prize. Because again, they assume that Dagon is the one who gave them the victory in the battle. So you bring Dagon the prize and hang it there so he can enjoy that over his mantle. When everybody in Jabesh Gilead hears this news, they go, it's kind of a real act of courage here. They go right smack into the den of their victors. The mighty warriors brought the bodies of Saul and his sons back to Jabesh, and they give them a proper burial. Verse 13 is an important verse. It says, so Saul died because he was unfaithful to the Lord. That's the chronicler's conclusion. It's very important because notice that's the way of taking back the glory from Dagon. You know what I mean? Remember how Saul's head was hanging as a trophy for Dagon because they assume, praise Dagon because Dagon had won the battle for them. But the chronicler comes back and says, no, make no mistake. Saul died because he was unfaithful. That's unfaithful. It's one of the chronicler's favorite words. We're going to run across it over and over and over. I think the Hebrew word is ma'al, unfaithful. And so Saul died because he was unfaithful, not because the Philistines were stronger, not because Dagon is any kind of real God. No. God is still in control. God is still working out his purposes, and Saul died because Saul was unfaithful. Make no mistake. He failed to obey the Lord's command. He even consulted a medium. See, that's where the chronicler, he knows you know the story. We talked about this on Friday. He knows you know the story. And so he's telling you the story now, not because it may be something you forgot, but because you need to hear the story afresh. And so he just refers, remember he consulted a medium, the witch of Endor, remember that story? But we don't have to tell you that story. We know you know that story. And the chronicler just says, he was unfaithful in a lot of ways. He consulted a medium even instead of asking the Lord for guidance. So the Lord killed him and turned the kingdom over to David, son of Jesse. I mean, that's where we're going right there. These 14 verses were just an opportunity to go, here's David. We got to explain how David gets to the throne. Now, you know the story, and you know that it was a pretty uneventful transfer of power, but it wasn't totally uneventful. I mean, wasn't there a son of Saul that hung around a while and made himself the king? I mean, it wasn't, just absolutely. And then there was David, but for the chronicler's purposes, and then there was David, and so he turns from these 14 verses for Saul in order to give us 19 chapters for David, and that's where where we turn now. I think you're going to love this. I'm enjoying it already. So tomorrow we'll pick up in 1 Chronicles chapter 11. We'll do the whole. Let me make sure. We'll do the whole chapter. We're going to end with a little more genealogy, but I think you can deal with that by now. I think you've learned how to handle the genealogy. So all of chapter 11 for tomorrow. 1 Chronicles chapter 11, verses 1 to 47. It is Monday. It's my day off. I've had my long run. I got an appointment at the eye doctor today. And then an appointment at Myers right across the street from me. So anyway, that's my day. I pray that I can bring God glory even on a day off, and I pray that you can do the same thing. I love you guys. I'll see you in the morning, Lord willing, 10 o'clock for 10 with Tim. Have a great day.